Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Barbara Hartman, you have once again returned to the Fox Den for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. I always enjoy your company on Dogman and Werewolf expeditions. Much better. I do feel revamped, recharged, and no longer thirsty and starving. Without further ado, it is time for Barbara Hartman and myself to take a walk into the darkness. My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back once again to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. I have been super busy getting caught up with my content, and I do appreciate everyone bearing with me as I have revamped everything. Yet tonight we have a brand new conversation with the one and only Barb Hartman. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me again. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you got. We were just chatting before, and you have some interesting cases to tell me about.
Yeah, no, it is always excellent to get you back here in the Fox Den, and I appreciate
Thank
the
you.
loyalty and also the bi-weekly conversations. It's great.
Yeah,
And
that's
sooner
great.
than later, yeah, I'll be super caught up and everything looks good now. I own everything and might as well just tell the audience that is listening is long story short is my CGI intro and outro that I lost rights to, meaning that I did not create that and I did not own that, and it was basically a leasing term, meaning that when your contract's up, you either revamp it or you lose the rights to it. And I didn't have enough money to buy it outright or to revamp the contract. And I'm very much capable of creating my own imagery and videography. So, yes, I had to redo my intro and outro and make it copyrighted to myself, which guess what means I had to redo every video that was included in,
Oh,
or technically they could have come after me for still using something. But guess
hmm
what? All good. In the past, 35 episodes are back up, so I do encourage everyone to seek on through. And tonight we are going to be talking about some stuff on the West Coast in Barb's
awesome.
neck of the woods.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm glad it's not too close to me, but because
Yes,
I'm
I
in
mean, it's
Washington,
definitely.
that's California, but still, it's the same coast. And I'm not saying that, I'm sure that they are here. I just don't. I'm not aware of any cases. So anyway, I'm excited to hear about the ones in California.
Yes, definitely. Well, recently there was one we'll start off with where local officials were being called because individuals and residents of a small community in California reported strange canine-like creatures that were trying to take their pets and lure their children into the forest, etc. Well, officials then did make a report in the newspaper saying that they were quote unquote hybrid wolves that were unable to be caught. Yet at the end of the day, canines are smart, every animal's smart, but no matter what, human beings can catch any sort of animal that they want to. Meaning, if they were only hybrid wolves, then hunters or trackers would have easily been able to eventually catch one of them or all of them. Yet they never were able to be caught, which is interesting as to why they would have even put out a news article about that.
That is interesting and kind of suspicious, right?
You would think, yeah, of course. And if that's not one that's a head scratcher, then you got the Watts Valley ape cat, which is an older case where, yes, something that looks like an ape cat is coming in to a classroom of children and basically is attacking them more or less to get their food and their lunch. And all the students had to get up on desks and stay away from this ape cat as it took everyone's food and lunch and savaged the schoolhouse or schoolroom because it was, like I said, an older case, so it wasn't necessarily a massive public school. But yes, and from this point on in those areas in Watts Valley, Fresno County, California, people report still seeing this thing all the time.
An ape cat. Wow. What in the world do you think that could be? An ape cat.
It's just a form of a dogman, more or less.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, kind of like the Klickitat ape cat in Washington, which was during the time of the Cold War when Lauren Donaldson and Dr. Barr had been basically employed by this facility to more or less try to work on and experiment on apex predators because at this point in time we were definitely highly alert and worried about Russia trying to come in and take some of our nuclear technology. So we were training dolphins and other marine life to be able to detect mines and also put mines on Russian ships. And there was even something that they were able to put on the snouts of the dolphins where if you and I were trespassing, they would come in and it would prick you and we would float to the top of the surface with an inflatable balloon, and then officials were waiting for us. So yes, and Dr. Barr and Lauren Donaldson came in here, and Lauren Donaldson was super famous because he made the Donaldson trout, which was basically an immortal fish, meaning it could live in cold water, warm water, didn't matter. And it was pretty much saltwater, freshwater, didn't matter. It could be disposed of, but it was a hardy fish. And they were up there, working on things. And 3 different times, both of those scientists admitted to having issues where apex predators that they had been experimenting on escaped. And they had said they got the majority of them back, and they also never specified as to what it was that they were exactly experimenting on. Yet ever since then, they have had reports in that area, quote unquote, the Klickitat ape cat, where this thing looks like a sleek version of kind of a cat that's jet black, but also ape looking with a huge mane. And yeah, super interesting right there as well.
Yeah. Wow. That's really creepy. Ooh. So, and there's still reports of that being seen?
Yes, just maybe within the last few months. Like he owns a store, like a sporting outlet store in that area, and people come in all the time, and he basically fields reports. And he was talking about some of the newer encounters and reports of that as well.
Wow. Yeah, and that's too bad. It's kids would have, or somebody would have it, could get it on their cell phone if it happens now, if it would come into a school, but I'm sure that it's well aware they're not going to just be coming into schools now, and now that people are really kind of on to them, right?
Exactly. No, for sure. But I can just only imagine the terror of the little kids.
Oh, I can't even. Oh my gosh.
Just probably jumping up on their desk and leaving their backpacks down there as this creature was just rummaging through everything, going absolutely bananas. So yeah, those are some of the more infamous West Coast encounters right there. But then there is also something called the Yuba County 5, which I have a hypothesis that potentially could be a theory as to what had happened to them. And long story short is basically they were at this point in time, it's an older case. So I think people didn't have compassion and understanding of potential depression, social anxiety disorder, etc. And they would call these individuals slow, but they all had jobs, and one of them loved his car and worked on his car, fixed his car, and they were able to all drive around. So I mean, technically, how slow can you be if you are capable of doing all that? That's just
Right.
my opinion on
No,
things.
you're right.
And
You're functioning
yes,
adult, so
yes.
yeah.
So if he can fix his car and work on all
Mhm.
this and drive all around, he obviously knows where they are and what they're
Mhm.
doing. So they were going to a basketball game that night. It was like a straight shot to where they needed to go. And they go there, they're seen at the game. Afterwards, they stop at a store to get some snacks, and there's later on candy wrappers and such found in their car, and they're seen getting snacks. But as they're coming back, okay, it's a straight shot. So why did they take this massive left, okay, and go up into this huge
Oh,
national forest and then get out of their car with the doors and things still open and the windows down when this dude loved his car? And also, the car could have easily been pushed out of the snow that it was found in. It
that's
wasn't even
right.
technically stuck.
Yeah,
Yes. And then they
wow.
all just run off into the forest. Okay, so here is obviously this is just a hypothesis because there could be numerous things that occurred here. But say, what if a dog man was standing in the middle of the road, which they have been reported numerous times, standing in the
Mhm.
middle of the road, laying in the
Mhm.
road, or standing on the side of the road? What if it was in the middle of the road, right?
Yeah.
And these kids or these men see it. They're like, what the heck, terrified as this raging,
Yeah.
weird looking creature is standing there. So they swerve and they go left, which is the only other way they could have gone. So now, as they're going up towards the park, they probably realize, oh crap, but this thing now is chasing them. And most
Yeah.
likely, as they are trying to turn around or such, they get stuck. And then this thing is
Mm.
either coming towards their car, outside of their car, they flip out, they run off. And
Mhm.
they ended up finding, I believe, the majority of them, or maybe all of them, but they were all deceased. And they were found out all kinds of different areas. And one was found inside of the cabin where he did have frostbite and stuff, but he had access to food and all this, but it was almost like something was keeping him in there, or he was so
Yes.
afraid to even go get the food and such that he never left his bed and just basically
Mhm.
deceased.
Starved to right? Is that what they found that he had starved.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I do remember this, but I remember it, but I've never heard it like being attributed to potentially a cryptid. So that's interesting. Wow.
Like I said, yeah, obviously there's definitely a few different things that could have come into play, but besides that, though, I mean, sure, you could have had a group of crazy people blocking the road, yeah, etc. But that's why I just said a hypothesis of, say, a
Mhm.
dog man,
Yeah,
or
but that's
is
a good
sitting.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, something obviously caused them to have to detour, considering it was a
Mhm.
straight shot, meaning
Mhm.
obviously something installed fear enough to make them go up in that other
Right.
direction
Right.
and
Yeah.
leave the safety of their car to
Uh-huh.
run frantically off into the darkness of the forest, where they happen to just luckily come across basically like a cabin type area
Mhm.
or a storage type facility.
Mhm. But they all were not found in that cabin though, right?
No, only
Just
one
the
of them
one.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which that's another thing, like what in the world? But that, yeah, and then the snow was yeah, because the car got stuck in the snow, right? Because it was deep
Mm-hmm.
and
But
the road
where
that they
they,
had been
yeah,
traveling.
so where they were found, it was deeper, but at the spot where their car was, they said it,
Oh,
like officials and others that knew them said it was easily able to have been backed up or
okay.
pushed out. And
Yeah.
also they were saying that the kid loved it, or the guy loved his car so much there's no way he would have left it there.
Mhm.
So now say, right, they're all running for their lives into the
Yeah.
forest. And okay, maybe one gets snagged by this dogman or etc.
Mhm.
And then they get into this storage facility. Well, they're
Mhm.
hungry, and okay, so one by one they have to go out to look for food, and they keep getting snagged, which would then leave the last guy who was in there that didn't dare to go out anymore.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. But you said there was food in the cabin? where they were
So
found,
from
right?
what I understand, it was like a storage type unit. So
Yeah.
it was like for basically emergencies in this national park for park
Hmm.
workers or anyone, I guess, technically that got stuck out there. So
Yeah.
yeah, the part that he was found in, there wasn't food, I don't think, directly in there, but the next kind of little area over, like
Mm.
there was, yeah, access to a ton of stuff. But it was
Oh,
almost like he didn't dare to even go out to that little building next to them to get all the stuff.
yeah. Oh, that's so terrible. Wow. Now, what was do you have any idea what the condition, of the bodies of the other kids that were found, or guys or whatever?
So yeah, when they were found, it was, I think, pretty well decomposed because it
Mm.
was like you said, deep snow at that point in time, and they didn't even really know where the heck they had gone off to. So I think it took a little bit for search parties to find them.
Okay.
I'm not
Hmm.
fully correct on that, and I do encourage anyone. All this information is out there, so if you do have questions that you feel that we didn't cover or such, the case is covered on everywhere from Wikipedia to news outlets. So I mean, it's definitely
Yeah.
available for sure. And yeah, I'm pretty sure they're all found with signs of predation, but you also can't tell what it could be. It could be birds or anything at that point in time
Yeah.
because, I mean, even rodents do, meaning my squirrel, she loves chewing on chicken bones for like the
Uh-huh.
marrow and stuff. And also,
Yeah.
there's a little chipmunk that comes over now. He's super cool. And same thing, he'll chew on some of the little bones and stuff too for the marrow because it's important. And so any sort of animal, insects,
Hmm.
rodents, birds, anything's gonna start feasting and pulling the parts of that body.
Yeah.
So that's really kind of tough to tell as to
Mhm.
what really could have done that. But just the whole outline of how it all occurred is just really
Right.
intriguing because, like
Yes.
I said, what just caused them all to practically
Yeah.
do that?
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, like run for their lives. It just didn't make any sense. And then the poor guy that starves like in bed in the cabin. And I went, oh, just yeah, very tragic and puzzling though. Whoa. And I can't even remember where I saw that. So I'm wondering what they had whatever I watched. I just wonder what yeah, what oh wow. So that's really a mystery that we'd like to know, right?
Yes.
That's a very good hypothesis. I think so. Makes sense.
No, I appreciate that. And before, you can ever have a theory, you got to start with a hypothesis that potentially
Mhm.
makes
Right.
sense as to what's occurring, and then also have some
Exactly.
other minds that are intellectual, dive in and figure out, hey, yeah, this is actually
Yeah.
something maybe that could be boiling. And I just, like I said, always try to subjectively, objectively, and just logically look at
Mhm.
something and just in my own head,
Mhm.
I guess, try to put myself in the situations as to when things are occurring, but also everyone acts differently. But just meaning if you or I or anyone's driving down the road at night, having a good time with people talking, and all of a sudden one of them's like, oh my goodness, what is that? You slam on your brakes, there's a huge raging
Yeah.
beast in the road. What are most people going to do? You're going to swerve in the direction of the open road. And then, oh crap, wait a
Mhm.
second. We're now driving up to the national park. I don't know if this is
Yes.
the best spot because it's not plowed, etc. But that's not the first thought that comes across your mind. So I always try to, like I said, put myself in the situation as to, okay, well, how would someone logically react to what's occurring? And it's no different than if someone sees a massive crocodile and you stand there with your phone, you
Yeah.
disappear, okay? So it's no different
Mhm.
than if someone was to act like that with a cryptid or something. Oh, here, let me just pull my phone out. It doesn't work like that. I mean, it's the
Mhm.
person, for example, okay, there is a really successful photographer and videographer that specializes in avalanches, and almost every footage out there is probably from him. And more or less, what he has to do though is he sets the camera up, okay, and it starts recording, and then afterwards he'll edit the stuff out. But he sets it up, and then he runs, okay, he
Oh
runs,
yeah.
and then the avalanche
Oh.
occurs and comes down, and he gets this epic footage, okay. So
Mhm.
sure, yes, if someone was doing that, that's logical. But as an
Mhm.
instantaneous tiger jumps out of the foliage and runs at you
Yeah.
within 10,
Right.
15 yards, no intellectual individual is going to pull out their phone and be like, oh, TikTok time. No, it doesn't
Right.
work like that.
Right. When did this happen? I feel like it wasn't very recent, was it? I can't remember
The
what
Yuba County
what.
5.
Yeah.
All
Was
right.
that? I
So
feel like it wasn't whatever I watched it on. I feel like it wasn't that
not
recent.
1978.
Okay. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. And
So
so
like
you wouldn't have they didn't have
no.
cell phones. They didn't have any phones.
And people back
N-
then were, I mean, people this day and age are quote unquote heartless. So imagine 1978 now, how, like I said, quote unquote heartless people are going to be. So, like I said, I don't think these
Mhm.
people were as intellectually disabled
Oh,
as they
yeah.
are being portrayed to be.
Yeah. That's terrible. But yeah, it happens. That's sad.
Yeah, you know
Wow.
what I mean? It's more or less
Mhm.
like an example, like with the witch trials and the werewolf trials, like
Mhm.
so mental illness and such, which we understand this day and age, but during those time frames, mental illness wasn't even a thing. So people that actually would have been struggling with anxiety and social disorders and all this crazy stuff that's occurring back then because of public executions and just
Mm.
behaviors that were considered normal. I mean, sure,
Yeah.
it's going to cause all these emotions and feelings and such. So now someone with, for example, autism that can just basically pick up on numbers and do kind of some cool little superpower things, they would have
Mhm.
thought was a witch or something and they would have
Yeah.
been disposed of. Or someone, for example, that's a naturalist or a survivalist that knows about herbs and things like that. Oh, they're into the dark magic. They would have been disposed of.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying? So
Mhm. Oh yeah,
it's,
definitely.
yeah, so it's like a something that as we've progressed in time you would like to think we've evolved to an extent in that mind frame, but yeah, it's just type of the mind frames that were being presented. So that's just why I said I don't think that they were really disabled.
We've come so far. We've come I mean, we haven't come far enough, but we've come much further than before because a lot of the kids were it's terrible just institutionalized, just
Well,
locked
that's what I'm
away. If
saying,
there's
especially
anything
exactly
wrong, yeah, which is
exactly
terrible.
which is horrible, but also that's
Mm.
why I think some of these older cases have more credence to them because it was even more taboo for someone to report having some sort of encounter like that because people
Yeah.
were already so closed off mentally about
Yeah.
things, especially like during like werewolf trials. If you saw one and you reported seeing one, people were like, yeah, right, you're the werewolf. So, I mean, it was dangerous just to even
Mhm.
report things like that. Whereas now, yeah, people love cryptids and such. So it's much easier to talk about something like that. But during the medieval times, that was considered taboo and like witchcraft.
I did not know about werewolf trials. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I not
Yes.
I knew about obviously
So
the witch trials, but I didn't know about the
yep.
werewolf.
Again, I mean, I know that we had witch trials obviously here, unfortunately, but yeah, they were huge over in Europe, the werewolf trials, and same thing, just people being, tortured and getting to the point of confessing to things. But I mean, let's be real, people don't need to be a genius to realize, quote unquote, when someone is tortured, they're obviously
Mhm.
going to say anything
Right.
that is anything to stop what is occurring. So,
Yep.
just because quote unquote all these people admitted to being werewolves, there was obviously a very logical reason to why to admit that because again, anyone can look up some of the medieval torture
Yeah.
techniques and they were beyond
Yeah.
messed up.
Terrible.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
someone's
Just
gonna
stop the pain. You just want to
yes,
stop
I
the
was a werewolf, okay, yeah, and then what
Mhm.
happens, they
Yeah.
dispose of you. But yeah, so same thing,
Yeah.
people that were
Yeah.
believed to, maybe be too hairy or that were hermits out in the forest when people's
Mhm.
livestock would go missing by wolves. Well, the hermit out in the forest, he or she must have been the werewolf. So same thing, yeah, they just went through and
Mhm.
purged people and made them
Wow.
admit to lycanthropy.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah, I did not know that. And I knew about, that there was something similar, right, with like vampires
Yep.
so but wow. Mm.
It just shows you the
So
lack of understanding of
yeah,
things.
yeah, yes. So the area that these boys were found, that they perished, are there any other reports in that area that you're aware of, currently?
So as I look at the map here, yeah, actually, that's kind of up towards Nuxium, Brother Nature's area,
Oh,
where in Yosemite,
he has had a ton of he's basically being quote unquote stalked by a skinwalker is what he
Oh, wow.
believes. And he has come to his cabin, and more or less ever since he tracked it to its cave where he thinks it lived, he has
Oh.
had some pretty unfortunate events in
Oh.
regards of it kept coming. And he used to not lock his car because he lives in the middle of nowhere near
Huh? Yeah.
Cascade Lake in a cabin slash tent. So he
Mm.
doesn't really need to lock his car. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this thing was urinating all inside of his car and
Oh.
just all over the place. So he had to get rid of it. And he said it was banging on the side of his cabin and basically sounded like a ticked off Scooby Doo. And
Oh my God.
yeah, so
That's
he
terrible.
also said, yeah, when he was in his tent at one point in time, the thing was he could hear it sniffing the air, more or less like, who the heck is
Mm-hmm.
here? And then it
Mm-hmm.
just directly made a beeline towards his tent and was like feeling it because he didn't understand what a tent was directly. So, yeah, pretty creepy.
Wow, very. Oh my gosh, poor guy. I hope he's. Mm. And he thinks it's a skinwalker. Oh,
Which, yeah, and
bad
he is,
news.
yes, he is indigenous, and
Mm-hmm.
he definitely does not like to speak about skinwalkers, more or less,
Mm-hmm.
meaning he,
Mm-hmm.
because it gives them power. But yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
definitely think it's different, more or less, than a dogman because just of its behaviors and also the maliciousness, where like Ryan Tremblay touches on it. Skinwalkers and such are usually like tricksters and such, meaning they just are toying with you, messing with you. Your misery is basically their pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
So, more or less, a dogman is just going to try to get you. It's not going to really necessarily get too much enjoyment, more or less. It's just going to
Mm-hmm.
smash the window, try to grab you. I mean, it might pick up on your fear and enjoy it, but the skinwalker, just by like urinating in his car, banging on his
Mm-hmm.
cabin, making Scooby-Doo type noises, and just like every time he's out and about, he feels like it's like lurking behind him. So more or less, just it could have got him at any point in time. I don't think its purpose is that. I think its purpose is just to basically torment him.
Yeah, intimidate.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly, 100%.
yeah.
And that is really super interesting. So that's
So,
another
and I
story.
guess it wants to keep him away from its lair potentially. The cave or whatever that he found it in.
Yeah,
Mm.
ran him out of camp. He said basically he no longer is at Camp Winters where he originally was. He used to be the instructor up there and such, but he would stay there during the off seasons just to make sure everything was all right. And then he would set up the plumbing and do all the maintenance. So he was always there by himself. But ever since this thing occurred, it more or less ran him out of Camp Winters where he originally
Oh,
was. So,
yeah, that's a shame too.
hmm
But oh gosh. And now, did you say was that in a national forest or near a national forest
yeah,
or a park?
Cascade Lake is a very
Okay.
old volcanic area. It's a deceased volcano, and so the ground is very hard. And just to leave footprints means you're an extremely girthy
Yeah.
individual. And he's got some tracks from that. And if you look at like a bunch of the missing people in the mountain ranges and also some of the dogman encounters and sightings, it's right around the time there was a huge forest fire down in the southern part of California. And it's almost like it was pushing this thing or these things up. And they just
Oh,
kept making their way towards
yeah.
areas until they found this one. And Nuxium had mentioned that ever since this thing had come around, there was no more really like wildlife in the area either.
Oh, wow. Wow. Now their Skinwalker's supposed to be the one that has like assumed the beast that it's, you know, whatever. Is that how that works?
Yeah, so that's
With its
why Ryan Tremblay was saying that we should all definitely be careful when we use the term as dogman, werewolf, and skinwalker because it would be really hard for a mortal being to be able to take the pelt of a dogman to take on the form of that.
Yeah.
Whereas you can most likely dispose of a bear, wolf, etc. And if you look at in skinwalker lore in the Navajo legend, all the
Mm-hmm.
terminologies mean he or she that walks or is on all fours or being on all fours. So it never really states anything about turning into a quote unquote raging monster. That's more of the curse of the Rougarou that came over with the old French settlers, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. But terrorize, like you said, nonetheless, and simply because they want to intimidate and scare and whatever they can do.
Well, yeah. So
Mm.
picture basically what a skinwalker. So you take on the form of, say, a coyote, and you have like the glowing eyes and all the powers
Mm-hmm.
of basically witchcraft, but you're still a human. You're just now in the form of a coyote, so you
Mm-hmm.
can still think like a person and do all the things that a person could be. You're just in the form of a glowing coyote being with dark powers. So not only
Yeah.
do you have the powers of the animal that you've overtaken, you also have the magic aspects of being a skinwalker.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. That is scary stuff. Because what do you do? What would you how do you handle that? I mean, he's indigenous, so does he have any, suggestions, or do you just stay away from it? What would you
So
do?
that's such a great question because it's a huge difference. I don't, he always says, well, just make sure you're staying safe while you're doing your research. And I just kind of
Uh-huh.
chuckle and I'm like, hey, I'm just researching the Dogman. I mean, the Dogman,
Uh-huh.
last time I checked, doesn't use a cell phone and things like that. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not really too worried about that. But if
Mhm.
I was I don't deal with paranormal aspects
Mhm.
and, the dark magics and things, which
Mhm.
is what skinwalkers are. There are people that research that, but that's
Mhm.
why I personally don't research that stuff because, sure, if you're researching things that are in the darker realms and such, yeah, you probably might want to do maybe some things that could encourage that to not linger with you, like burning
Mhm.
sage and
Uh-huh.
there's certain things, yeah.
Protection.
Nuxian will, chew on or light up or smoke a certain tobacco before he goes and does
Mhm.
something, or he's spoken to a bunch of elders and things. So, yeah, it's something that they don't even really like to write down. Like I said, they don't even like to
Mm-mm.
mention it, but
Yeah.
it's an oral thing. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of times he's told me things where, for example, I can't document them in my book because
Mhm.
that's written, but yet I can verbally and pass it on because it's oral history.
Gotcha. Right. Yeah. Scary stuff for sure. That's even scarier than the thought of cryptids, right? Because, oof.
Yeah, no, it's
Mm.
straight up
Mhm.
mind-boggling because
Yeah.
just to, like I said, to become a skinwalker is just some of the darker stuff. And actually, in one of the episodes, I believe the first one I did with Ryan Tremblay, he talks about a ton of that. So if you are ever interested in really learning about skinwalkers, he
Yeah.
blows the top off of just
Okay.
knowledge and really distinguishes why there is a massive plateau of a difference between dogmen,
Wow.
skinwalkers, and werewolves. The only thing that is close to the skinwalker would be the Wendigo. Okay, that can kind of fall
Oh,
into
yeah. Ooh.
that category, yes.
Mm.
But dogman has nothing to do with skinwalking and such,
Mhm.
and nor do werewolves. Werewolves is a curse that is installed upon somebody, and there are some cases that we can talk about in the future of actual evidence supporting lycanthropy. And then, like I said,
Mhm.
the dogman is the dogman. It doesn't change form. It doesn't need a full moon to be the
Right.
dogman,
Yes. Gotcha.
etc. So, yeah, those
Mhm.
are the real big
Yeah.
differences where I think people get things mixed up. Don't get me wrong. People are going to be like, oh, well, why do you use the term werewolf? The reason I use the term werewolf is because everyone understands and just goes right to that term. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, yeah, if it was called the Wolfman, I'd love to say that, but people don't listen unless you put in the title, "A werewolf ate my friends." Because if you're like, "Oh, a wolfman ate my friends" or something,
Yeah.
nope, doesn't matter.
Mhm.
But oh, it's a werewolf, So
Yeah. Gotta give that a listen too. Oh.
yes, definitely. But
Ooh. Well, and also I feel like if you witness something like that, you're just gonna know, like we talked about this before, whatever trauma response you have, that's what your mind is gonna go to, what you think you know about that. And so you're not gonna say, "Hey, by the way, I want to remember this correctly. Are you a skinwalker or a Wendigo or a dog?"
that's
Right?
yes, like
What
one
am I
hundred.
dealing with here? Oh.
100%. So it's so funny. It's so funny, but that's just how people are. But
Yeah, yeah,
I do
for sure.
appreciate you again stopping by tonight and definitely trying to figure out some of these interesting cases that did
Yeah,
occur
I
on the
want to
West
hear.
Coast.
I'd like to hear more about about like you said, about the werewolf cases and whatnot. That's very, very interesting. And I'm going to give that that episode with Ryan, I'm going to give that a listen to so I can learn more about it. Definitely.
Yeah, he absolutely. There is some straight up nightmare fuel stuff he talks
Yeah.
about in there. And like I was telling you, I'm going to tell the audience real quick is there's going to be playlists on my thread where, if people want to listen to certain people speak more, everyone's videos are going to be listed. So whether it's Barb's, Jessica Jones, Williams, Ryan Tremblay's, Colleen's, Jody's, there's going to be a section of all those, which is going to make it. I mean, I hope people watch all my episodes, but I'm just saying it's going to make it easier for people to be able to oh, wait a second. When William was saying something, oh, crap, what episode was that? Oh, wait a second. I can just go
Yeah.
to his playlist.
Yeah. Good. That's going to be great. So, yeah, all this. I'm so sorry for all this work that you had to do, but it sounds like it's going to kind of be, like they say, like a blessing in disguise, right? Because
Yes,
you've
it
learned a
had
lot.
to honestly be done
I know.
because, yeah, I had no issues, more or less, meaning YouTube hadn't hit me with anything. But
Mm.
I mean, I spoke to a friend of mine that she's a lawyer. I don't pay her, but she is a friend of mine,
Mhm.
former girlfriend, etc. So she just will, guide me in proper directions. And
Yeah.
she was just suggesting that you need to really rebrand now because they can come after you because you don't have the rights to this anymore and you don't want to all of a sudden have your channel blow up and then be sitting in court
Right.
and having them be able to
Oh,
take the money from every video that you have their
yeah.
intro and intro out, meaning everything that you have anyhow you wouldn't make a cent off of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's because we know that happens. That would be devastating. That's what you.
Yes. So
Yeah.
now, like I said, it just needed to properly be
Mhm.
done. Unfortunately, it
Yeah.
was a lot of work, but I mean, hey, 35 episodes is back up. And so in 9 days, I put out 35 videos. So
That's amazing. But I know you've been working around the clock, like you said. Oh my gosh.
yeah, I've
Wow.
definitely been pulling the grave shift. And I mean, I've still
Yeah.
been making sure to, get my 8 or 10 hours of sleep.
Mhm.
But there are things just sometimes that need to be done. And
Yep.
I will have everything back up within the next half a week. And then all stuff that will be coming out will be new stuff. So it'll be great.
Okay, great. Looking forward to it. Awesome.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. If you do enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, and share it. Even leave a comment if you feel the need. But make sure to feed the algorithm, and I will see you on the next one.